Into the Chasm is a new dungeon crawler game that I've been working on with my team for about 6 months now. But the problem is, the game doesn't have that much content in each level, and all you can really do is fight enemies and find the goal. That doesn't add much replayability, so in this devlog, I'm going to be adding tons of new stuff to the game to make it more interesting to play. To start, last devlog I said I was going to add achievements, but here's the thing. I don't want the game to have achievements, it just doesn't feel right for Into the Chasm. So instead I added bonuses. Basically, if the player pulls off an amazing feat like beating a level without losing any lives, or just beating the game for the first time, they get a small XP bonus as a reward. This is pretty easy to set up, but there aren't many bonuses right now, so if you have an idea for some sort of challenge, please add it in the comments. After I added the bonuses, I wanted to add something that's actually visible to the levels to make the player want to explore. Suddenly I had the idea of little floating orbs that are hidden around the levels, and if you collect one, you get stat bonuses for 30 seconds. I wanted them to be glowing, floating, and surging with magical energy, so I put on my headphones, grabbed an iced coffee, and got to work. The first step was to create graphics for them. I created a cool image and made a floating animation in Pascal, but I forgot to film this, so there's no footage of it. This didn't take long, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. After that, I had to actually get it into Godot and add it to the game. First, I created the scene for it and added the animated sprite in a collision area, and then I added some cool lighting for a great effect. I haven't added sounds yet, but a cool energy surging effect that gets louder when you get close to it would be awesome and is totally necessary. After I did this, it was time to actually make the orbs do something because currently they're sort of useless. I first set up the collisions with the player, and then went into the player's code and set up a small system to boost the player's stats. When you collect one, your speed, damage, and armor stats all get a small boost for 30 seconds before they reset. Surprisingly, this actually worked on the first try, and I didn't have to open Stack Overflow even once. The final step was to add them to the levels. This was actually by far the hardest part, and here's why. The point of these orbs isn't actually just to be power-ups. The point is to reward exploration. I don't want the players to just run for the end of the level the fastest way they possibly can. I want them to explore the cool areas I've added, challenge themselves to fight enemies, and learn the history of the chasm. So by putting these orbs in only the areas that the player doesn't actually need to go, I can reward the player for exploring. If you find one of these rare artifacts, you know you've explored the level more than most players will. It's not about the power. On this note, I'm planning on adding scroll fragments around the levels that contain bits of journals from the ancient mages and warriors that built the fortresses in the chasms and fought the monsters until they died, to sort of help the players learn the full history of the chasm. After adding these, I decided to just go into Milanote and start creating a sort of a concept for level 7 that I probably won't actually end up using. I want the final 4 levels to be really massive compared to the others, except maybe level 4 because it's completely enormous. And level 7 is designed to be sort of a labyrinth to confuse the player and make it take a long time because they'll just keep on finding themselves back where they came from. I need to make sure I make the map layout in a way that you can actually tell the rooms apart though, so that it's not basically impossible. I also want to have a sort of different fight in each different room, but not as many enemies in the passages between them, so that it sort of feels like it's a risk to go into a room, so it will sort of like encourage the player to do it faster, because that will work a lot better for the overall level. So with adding the orbs and bonuses out of the way, there was only one thing left to do before creating this devlog. Currently, you can play any level and read any storybook page whenever you want, but I wanted to force the player to beat the previous level before playing a level, so I set up a simple dictionary to hold the data of which levels the player has beaten. I made the buttons for the levels disappear if you haven't unlocked that level yet, and I set up a saving and loading system. Finally, I was done and I could start working on this video. That's it for this devlog. If you enjoyed, please subscribe.